Hi guys, Nora with you. We're still during the Pan-African Youth Forum in Wuhan. Today we are welcoming this lovely girl from South Africa. Hey girl.
Hi girl, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. So please introduce yourself.
I'm Linati Makanda. I'm a multidisciplinary storyteller, and I'm also the founder and creative director of my organization called Urban on My Tongue, UOMT for short. We are a youth organization that is in the cultural literacy and language preservation space. We are constantly pondering on how to move forward in terms of archiving languages in the digital age. So we are in the space of documenting youth languages as they move and just working with youth in their creative endeavors.
Okay, so it has definitely educational purposes, but how do you see languages being a tool among young people in Africa?
I think when you speak about languages or language, it's the vehicle would be to acknowledge that in Africa, language has been a political thing. And I think by political, I mean it does have the potential to split us apart in terms of us as Pan-African youth. And so it becomes important for us to be in a position to use language as a way to connect and collaborate. And that's what we do in our organization, is to give context to some of the languages that are used in the African space as a way for us to connect as African youth.
Okay, so from what I understood, it still focuses on some kind of creative things. Yes. So according to you, how can we raise awareness of creativeness in Africa?
I think creativity is very important, first of all. I think with a lot of the things that are happening in the world, creativity feels like the one place that youth can tap into to really connect with the side of themselves that is a bit more playful, right? But I think there's also a need to take creativity very seriously. And the ways in which that we can raise awareness is to plug creativity even into so-called informal or serious, or formal but serious spaces. I think it's important for us to be in places like this, the Pan-African Youth Forum, where you wouldn't maybe readily see a creative attending an event like this, but the conversations that are happening in the space are also relevant to youth that are in the creative sector. I think there is an opportunity for the world to definitely take not only the conversations, but the works themselves much more seriously than they already do.
So how, according to you, as an organization based on language, how can we encourage collaboration between African creators to develop Pan-African projects such as yours?
So the one thing that is cool about what we do is that we, even though the project and the organization was kickstarted in South Africa, we have created something that seeks to connect the whole of Africa and the youth. For instance, we have a printing pillar where we have the books, and currently we have a South African edition of the book. But what we do want to create are more books that are more editions in other African countries. And in that way, we are being collaborative about how we archive the language and the conversations in these youth spaces. So there, we are cross-exchanging our culture, our lived experience, and again, not only to collaborate, but also for context, to really see ourselves in each other more and more, and see less of opposition as well. And I think also going back to language as a tool, it creates more understanding for us as Pan-African youth.
Do you have in mind some kind of official initiatives that could be led to be more inclusive of young people on this creative side?
That's very interesting. I think inherently our organization is creative. And I think the reason why I'm saying that is when you speak about urban culture, you can't really talk about it without the images, without the photography, without the visual art, without the fashion. There's so much, right? And we've created something that young people can enter into and just be themselves and document just that. So I think in that sense, that's how we create initiatives that support all kinds of creativity, right? When we think about the books, in the actual book, we have images, we analyze music lyrics, and so even in terms of actual initiatives that we have an archival pillar, and there is an opportunity for us to figure out how we can tap into stuff like exhibitions, stuff like creating an actual archive even for urban culture that feels a bit broader than what the original or what some of the archives that exist can do or have been so far.
Thanks for your answer. All of those things that you mentioned are like more accessible in big cities. So how can we promote local creativity among young people in Africa in less connected areas?
That's an interesting question. So when we kickstarted off the project, I sort of thought about it in the sense that it's not enough to have a conversation about the culture in South Africa from an aerial point of view. So I started to look at geographics as the first point of reference. So we actually do everything that we do in terms of the analysis, what we write, what we create, the initiatives, are actually centered around the geographics of that specific place. So if we're talking about South Africa, we mean the Eastern Cape, the Gauteng, the individual provinces in that place. And so it would be like that even for other African countries that we would go into. We would look at the conversation in the specific regions and zero in on those regions and trying to understand more in those specific regions. So there is a need for us to not just look at it from an aerial point of view, but to know that we're staying in touch with each and every single, each and every single place in Africa.
Okay. Thanks for your answers and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. We hope to keep in touch with you for the next series of our podcast. Goodbye.